Hi, everyone. How's it going? Good to see all of you today. Today, we are going to be focused on social responsibility and impact and how we drive social impact through builders and AWS initiatives. And regardless of where you are in your personal or professional social responsibility and impact journey, you've come to the right place. So that's a start. I'm Cornelia Robinson. My pronouns are she, her, and I lead community affairs within the social responsibility and impact organization at AWS. I'm joined by my fabulous colleagues, Maggie Carter, LaDavia Drain, and Gayatri Prabhu. You're going to hear from all three of them in just a couple of minutes. So in terms of what we're going to cover today, I'm going to start by painting a really broad picture of what we do in the social responsibility and impact space for AWS. And then Maggie, LaDavia, and Gaia are going to take it a step further, and they're going to dive deeper on some of their programs that they're running globally with our builders here at AWS. And then we're going to move into a Q&A session. I'm going to start with a few questions, and then you'll have an opportunity to ask questions. So we want this to be an interactive session. And the goal for today is really to get you to think about the role that social impact and responsibility plays in your personal life, in your professional life. You can compare and contrast with some of the things that we've done and lessons learned, in our own journey with social responsibility and impact. And then also as AWS customers, thinking about how you may be able to leverage our technology for your own social responsibility and impact sessions. Sound like a plan? All right. Well, then let's jump right into it. And start talking about our broader social responsibility and impact mission for AWS. At Amazon, we have a total of 16 leadership principles. And the one that we really try to ground our social responsibility and impact work is a newer leadership principle that says success and scale bring broad responsibility. And we believe that AWS-powered technology can drive change by addressing some of the world's greatest and most complex challenges. So when you think about the greatest and most complex challenges, if I were to ask each of you, what are the world's greatest and most complex challenges, chances are we would have a really long list, and we might not even agree on what all of those things are, and that's normal. That's a part of the process that we actually followed as we were trying to narrow our focus from an AWS standpoint and think about how we try to go deep in social impact instead of going way too broad where you really don't have an opportunity to make an impact at scale. So our team identified these issues and areas where we believe that technology, cloud technology very specifically, can have the strongest impact around the world, and these are considered our core focus areas. So the pillars are health equity, disaster response, environmental equity, and then technology education. And we try to ensure that we also ensure that there's a hyper-local impact. And what we mean by hyper-local impact is we look at the places where our employees live and work and raise their families, and then we're listening to those communities and working backwards from their needs to solve their real-world problems. In the health equity space, Maggie's going to talk about a $40 million commitment that we have over 3 years. And we work in collaboration with organizations that are engaged in health equity work. And so again, going back to that notion of with success and scale, in order to scale, one of the things that we have to do is work in collaboration with our customers. Also, in the technology education space, we have a commitment to educate 29 million individuals around the world and to democratize access to cloud computing education. Our customers include nonprofit organizations, schools, purpose-driven companies, as well as social entrepreneurs. And again, we apply our technology, our scale, as well as the passion of our employees to make a positive impact and to drive new innovative solutions to really impact our communities. We focus on a number of long-term initiatives, and we have programs that have been developed throughout AWS. So we truly believe that social responsibility and impact is everyone's responsibility. It doesn't just rest on one organization, on one individual, on one team. It rests with every single AWS builder. So I'm really excited that my colleagues are going to share more real-life examples. As I said, my goal was to provide that broad perspective of social responsibility and impact for AWS. And now I'm going to hand it over to Maggie, who is going to take us through some of the work that's being done in our pillars.
Thank you, Cornelia. I'm honored to be here today, here at reInvent with all of you, so thank you for joining us, and representing the Social Responsibility and Impact team, where I'm going to dive deeper, focusing on our disaster response pillar and our health equity pillar, and sharing a little bit more about how our customers are leveraging AWS technology to advance programmatic outcomes through solutions on AWS. So Cornelia talked about this, but our mission for the Social Responsibility and Impact team is really to fuel and amplify and democratize access to AWS Cloud, and really enabling organizations. So it could be, community-based organizations, it could be a startup, it could be a nonprofit or a school-based organization, to really leverage the power of AWS technology to support those efforts in those focus areas. And we really look at how can we drive positive impact and outsized impact in those areas. So we've identified those 4 focus areas where cloud technology can have a differentiated impact. And so that is public health specifically, disaster response, environmental equity, and then tech education. And also how we're supporting local communities through all of our work. So our disaster response team partners with relief organizations, nonprofits, government agencies to help develop cloud-enabled technologies or solutions that address common issues throughout the disaster lifecycle. And that could be anywhere from secure communications, connectivity, processing aerial imagery to identify impact-related areas, or even spinning up a cloud-based call center at a moment's notice. And we also deploy our disaster response team and volunteers after disasters to help increase bandwidth for those organizations that are responding to disasters, and help them enable them to use AWS cloud-based technologies during response efforts. So I'm going to go through a couple of recent examples. Maui wildfires, which was one of the most devastating wildfires in US recent history. And our team deployed in partnership with the organizations responding on the ground to help restore communications and connectivity. And I'm going to go a little bit further into a couple of use cases there. So we partnered with Information Technology Disaster Resource Center, so ITDRC. They're an IT-based nonprofit organization whose mission is to restore connectivity after a disaster, so supporting responding organizations and communities in need. And so we were on hand to help them stand up local connectivity and access cloud-based solutions, enabling responding organizations to communicate with one another and more effectively respond to the disaster. It also helps support citizens, impacted citizens, communicate with responding organizations to provide aid or relief support to them and their families, and also for them to be able to communicate with their loved ones. And then in this use case, we also collected imagery to help with a number of assessment projects. One in particular helped the local community to digitize areas of cultural importance to preserve that, which had been impacted by the wildfires. Another recent example is Hurricane Idalia, which hit Florida in August of this year. And so it left over 300,000 people without power and limited connectivity. So we quickly deployed our disaster response team and volunteers on the ground, and we also shipped our response vehicles, 2 of those, through to an Amazon fulfillment center, where we were able to partner with ITDRC again, as well as Verizon response team and Operation Barbecue Relief. And we did a few things on the ground, but with each of them, it was enabling cloud technology and ensuring that we had connectivity to support the communications efforts on the ground. So one in particular with Operation Barbecue Relief. So they're an organization that provides meals to impacted communities or citizens, as well as supporting first responders and providing them with meals. And so we developed a solution that they piloted during Hurricane Idalia. And that solution, it tracks meals and meal supplies to more effectively support the impacted community. And over Labor Day weekend, they were able to more effectively provide meals to 30,000 people per day. And that's thanks in large part to this solution that they developed and utilized. And now I'm going to transition to our health equity efforts. So our work is grounded on the belief that health outcomes should not be based on socioeconomic status, race, ethnicity, or by neighborhood. Those are social determinants of health. And so through our health equity efforts, we want to work with customers to address the inequities in health and break those down, whether it's through research or solution development. And by doing this, we believe that technology can help break down those barriers. And how we're doing that in enabling health equity is through our Health Equity Initiative, which Cornelia talked about. That is a 3-year commitment of $40 million in AWS promotional credits and support from our builders, which are employees, and technical support in particular, to help advance and scale technology or solution development in support of health equity. And I'm going to go through a couple of examples on that, but we also partner with organizations like Halcyon. So we call those force multipliers. And they, in particular, help connect AWS technology to women and Black entrepreneurs who are working hand in hand in local communities, whether that's in sub-Saharan Africa, in Latin America, or here in the US. And they're working backwards in the communities to address what are the gaps and what are the greatest needs. And then they're partnering with Halcyon and with AWS to help enable their usage, their understanding of AWS technology, to then address those issues in their local communities. So I'm going to go through a couple of examples. Huron AI. So they've identified a problem. In Rwanda specifically, there's 15 oncologists for the entirety of the population. And what that means is there's one oncologist to roughly 3,500 cancer patients in the country. And so they've developed a solution on AWS that helps oncologists more effectively communicate with cancer patients. And they're leveraging generative AI on AWS to prompt, they're asking questions of cancer patients who, based on their responses, it then prompts an oncologist and their staff to then more acutely, identify which patients need, care, and then they're able to address in a culturally sensitive way a cancer patient in real time. And what that's done is, it's reduced, or it's made oncologists 75% more effective in their the support that they're providing cancer patients. And then it also has, for cancer patients, it's made them have access to an oncologist in a more timely manner. Another one, which we don't have a slide on, it's M-Mama. It's a solution that is in partnership with Touch Foundation and Vodafone Foundation. And so M-Mama, it connects expectant mothers and their children with life-saving transportation, so they can have access to a health clinic or health care. And what they've done is they've provided more than 50,000 life-saving transportation rides to health care since its launch. And they're continuing to scale and expand these efforts and looking at additional markets. And what this has also done, the impact, is it's reduced maternal mortality by 27% in the countries that they've rolled this out. And another one that's closer to home, who we play for. They've identified in the US, did you know that the #1 cause of death for healthy adolescent youth between the ages of 12 and 20 is sudden cardiac arrest? And at the same time, those adolescents don't have access to an electrocardiogram screening or an ECG during their annual physicals or during their sports physicals. And so Who We Play For has identified this problem, and they've developed a solution that is ML-based here on AWS that's analyzing ECGs. And through that, they are more than 70% effective at identifying anomalies in those ECGs. And, they've screened over 250,000 youth. And through that, they've identified more than 50 that have potentially critical heart issues and have referred them for critical care. So that's just a few examples talking about the power of that our customers are tapping into AWS technology to really transform the lives of citizens, whether it's through disaster response or through health equity solutions. And so now I'm going to hand it over to LaDavia, and I hope you've seen that we take a very inclusion-based approach across all of our programs. And LaDavia is going to go a little bit more into our methodology behind that and some programs that she leads that focus in this space.
Thank you, Maggie. I have to say, just being here and listening to the presentation myself and being a part of the presentation, I've learned so much, and it makes me really proud to be an Amazonian, knowing what this team is driving. So thank you for the work that you do. So I'm going to talk about how we define inclusion, diversity, and equity first. I want us to have a shared language so that you really understand at AWS how we think about our ID&E work. Inclusion is about belonging. It's a sense, it's a feeling, it's knowing that you belong in a place. And we actually lead with inclusion here at AWS. Diversity is about being represented. Depends on what that means to you, right? We try not to box people in and define who you are or how you expect to be represented. But loosely, it's about being represented, being in the room, knowing, though, that there are people also in the room, look like you, come from the same places you come from. That's what diversity is about at AWS. And then equity. Equity is about fairness. Equity is probably the most challenging concept for folks to really understand. What does it mean to be an equitable workplace? The idea of equity means that we're going to meet you where you are, right? And we're going to provide solutions based on where you are and what you need, even down to your individual needs. So that's what equity is about for us here at AWS. We can go to the next slide. So I'm going to talk to you a bit about our programs that are within the ID&E team. We decided a few years ago that there's something about taking our inclusion work beyond our own workplace borders and going out and driving inclusion with our customers very often into communities across the globe. And so some of those programs, some are internal, some are external. Internal program that I'm very proud of is our Inclusion Ambassador program. And I can report that as of, I want to say, within the last week, we've met the goal of 15% of our builders in AWS being inclusion ambassadors. That's a pretty big deal because this program has been around for a few years now, but we really decided that we were going to make an intentional effort to really focus on building communities that our builders could be a part of. They would be safe spaces. There's chapters now all over the world, and so that's our Inclusion Ambassador program. It makes sure that all of our builders feel that they have a role to play in making our workplace more inclusive. Next, I'll talk to you about the Inclusion Pledge. It's the end of the year, so we're tracking goals right now. So I can also report that we've reached our annual goal for the Inclusion Pledge. We launched the pledge. It's been a little bit over a year now that we launched the pledge. Well, we're now at 30,000 plus builders in AWS that have decided that they're going to pledge to inclusion. So there's a list of commitments that we together have decided that we're going to make a part of who we are, how we lead. And so the Inclusion Pledge is not just a place where you go and tick a box and say, I pledge, but it also has an inclusion portal that's attached to it. So once you take the pledge, you have access to a portal of information, micro-learnings, trainings, events, ideas of how you as a leader can lead inclusively. It's a place that we all can go to and find these resources. One place for a good amount of employees. So that's our AWS Inclusion Pledge, and I'm really proud of that work. Next, I'll talk about inclusion in the cloud. So this is a place also internal to our employees, to our builders, where you go and you learn. You go and you learn. So our inclusion ambassadors, we try to connect all of our inclusion products as best as we can, but our inclusion ambassadors, for the most part, they're the people that lead the trainings that we have that sit on inclusion in the cloud. This is an opportunity at scale for us to deliver training to all of our employees. I'm really proud because a lot of our teams have decided that they're going to take their own goals. So they'll set goals within the business and say, well, I want my team to, at least 25% of my team members to complete Inclusion 101. We have paths also. So we have paths for our individual contributors around inclusion, on inclusion in the cloud. We have paths for our managers. So it's tailored specifically for what our managers need to be inclusive leaders. And then we have paths for our executives. And all of those things live on inclusion in the cloud. And last but not least, I'm going to talk to you about the Innovation Fund. I'm really proud of the Innovation Fund. We needed to figure out how can we deliver innovative, inclusive community efforts at scale in a pretty large organization. And so instead of our team making decisions about how we're going to deploy funding to be able to do this work across the globe at scale, we decided we'd give those funds back to our builders. So we now have a program where our builders submit an idea and they then execute on that idea in communities all over the world. So all of a sudden, we have democratized, right? We have made sure that there's an opportunity for all of our builders to contribute in some way in communities through the Innovation Fund. So one example that I'll give, the Innovation Fund is really one of the pillars. It's really working hard to ensure that women can move forward and progress even more in STEM fields. And so what we have noticed over the years is that a lot of the submissions from our employees are around driving inclusion in communities with community organizations that benefit women. So I would say another opportunity that we had, or that kind of came out serendipitously through the Innovation Fund, is we now understand what our builders find most important, like where they want to give back, how they want to give back. And so women programs is one of those examples, or women in technology programs. We can go to the next slide. And now I'm going to end and throw it over to you, Gaia.
Thanks, Ladivia, and good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us today, and I hope that, like me, you have also enjoyed listening to our esteemed speakers talk about AWS's social impact journey. My name is Gayatri, and I lead AWS in Communities, a program focused on creating lasting positive impact in over 30 plus AWS regions across 6 continents, where we build and operate our global infrastructure. which is our data centers. When AWS builds its cloud computing infrastructure, including data centers, in a community, it leads to increased local investment, more jobs, as well as more training and education opportunities for people that live in those places. In the US alone, AWS has invested over $108 billion in cloud infrastructure, contributing $38 billion to the US GDP, while supporting an average of 30,000 jobs in local communities where we operate our cloud infrastructure. In addition to the larger economic impact and jobs created by data centers, we are obsessed with being good neighbors in communities where, in our infrastructure communities. And with this intent, over 5 years ago, we launched the AWS in Communities program. AWS in Communities develops and launches a variety of programs that have a lasting positive impact on the lives of millions of people that live in our infrastructure locations. Similar to AWS's broader approach, our work is also guided by 4 key pillars: STEAM, which is science, technology, engineering, arts, and mathematics education; local skills development for communities; sustainability; and hyperlocal impact. Our STEAM education pillar focuses on enabling STEAM education and access to traditionally underrepresented members in the STEAM domain and encouraging them to actively pursue careers in technology. As part of our local skills development pillar, we support programs such as the data center technician training, as well as other training programs that enable residents in our communities to take up jobs in the data center ecosystem, not just with AWS, but with our vendors and with other data center related opportunities in the community. In addition to this, we also support and sponsor various tech and non-tech skill development programs that are relevant to those communities. Under the sustainability pillar and aligned with AWS's larger sustainability goals and climate goals, we focus on delivering water, renewable energy, and biodiversity projects in locations where we operate our data centers. And through all this, we remain focused on hyperlocal impact on the most urgent needs and requirements of our communities. We actively listen to what our communities say and design programs and initiatives to address the most pressing and urgent challenges in these communities. Today, I'll talk about a couple of our signature initiatives in the STEAM education pillar and also a little bit about our hyperlocal impact. The Think Big program is a key element of our STEAM education pillar. Think Big spaces are physical spaces in schools or local community buildings, or even mobile spaces, which could be vans or trucks fitted with STEAM labs, which focus on developing hands-on STEM training for students, enabling them to think big and develop interest in STEAM-related careers. We sponsor the infrastructure, the technology, as well as, when needed, curriculum and tutors as well in these spaces. And today we have over 69 AWS Think Big spaces across the world, supporting over 74,000 students globally. What's most inspiring is the transformative impact these spaces have had on the lives of students. A couple of months ago, I went back to one of our Think Big spaces in Mumbai that we set up in a public school, where previously the students didn't have access to even a basic science lab or any kind of hands-on learning. And it was inspiring to see them demonstrating projects to solve real-life problems. One of the students demonstrated a project where he was trying to create water from air, and there were other students that were improvising and creating simple appliances that could make household tasks easier, and so many other interesting opportunities. And we are really looking forward to see them turn into scientists and inventors of the future. And what's even more exciting about our Think Big program is that in 2024, we'll be launching a connected network of ThinkPic spaces where students and educators globally will be able to connect and interact with their peers across the world, effectively leveraging AWS's scale and technology. As I mentioned, and as our other speakers have mentioned, our efforts and events are aimed at providing equitable access to STEAM education and careers to traditionally underrepresented communities. Girls Tech Day started off in 2018 as a half-a-day event focused on enabling girls and young women to understand more about opportunities in STEAM and encouraging them to pursue careers in technology. It started off as a complimentary half-day event comprised of a panel discussion with women leaders, as well as a lot of fun and engaging STEAM activities where they could learn, get more exposure to careers in technology, and feel motivated to pursue those careers as well. Today, Girls Tech Day has spread to 26 countries and has reached over 13,000 girls and young women across the world. We discussed some of our global signature programs in the STEAM education pillar, and now I would like to switch over and talk a little bit about our hyperlocal impact. We are committed to improving the livelihoods of people that live in our infrastructure communities and understand that it is very important that we listen to our communities, understand what their most important and pressing needs are, and work backwards to address those needs and challenges. One of the ways in which we do this is through the AWS in Communities community funds. The community funds are a micro-grant program where community members could directly apply for funding for any kind of small community initiative that aligns to our 4 pillars. It could be something as simple as painting a local primary school or creating a park in their neighborhood or any other kind of initiative that makes lives better for our communities. And in 2023, we launched 10 community funds globally, and since last year, we have provided over 2 million in microgrants to support these hyperlocal community initiatives. We also are responsive to unexpected events and challenges that come up in our community. We supported COVID-19 relief efforts in a lot of countries, especially India and Indonesia, by setting up oxygen plants, ICUs, ambulances, donating hygiene supplies to these communities, as well as helping address food insecurity problem in communities across the world during those times. We renovated over 15 public schools in villages in India, built toilets, sanitation facilities, and waste management facilities in Indonesia, and continue to support other such pressing needs in these communities as well. A personally endearing story is one of the schools in a village in the state of Telangana in India, and that's the picture you see on the left part of the slide. When I visited this school 4 years ago, it was in a completely run-down condition. The walls were broken, the floors were also broken. There was no light or fans or toilets, no running water, sanitation facilities. The students were studying under the trees. And the other part of the rundown school infrastructure was that parents from the community who largely belonged to agricultural background and were working as daily wage laborers were spending a large portion of their family income in sending their children to private schools, and therefore had very little disposable income for savings or for any kind of emergencies. We completely renovated the school and relaunched a state-of-the-art school with classrooms fitted with furnitures, blackboards, smartboards, solar panels, toilets, lunch halls, completely functional. And since then, enrollment in the school has increased by 30%. In addition to all of these hyperlocal initiatives, we are also intentional about supporting events and programs that are integral to the fabric of the community to ensure that they continue to exist and continue to retain their uniqueness. This could be the Pendleton Roundup in Eastern Oregon or the Willing Warriors Bike Ride in Virginia. We do support and sponsor all of these programs across the world. And the heroes of our program who are behind the success of AWS in communities are our passionate and motivated employees across the world. They care about the places where they live, work, and raise their families. They help us determine the direction of our community engagement programs and form ambassador groups in these local communities, take on causes that are important in these locations, and design and run volunteer events as well. In 2023 alone, our employees from data centers have contributed over 20,000 hours in community service, a number we are both proud of and humbled by. Thank you for being part of this journey with us, allowing us to share our experiences. And with this, I hand over to Cornelia.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you to my amazing panelists. Always happy to be on stage with you all. And I'll also give a shout out to our social responsibility and impact leader, Jose, who's here. So thank you all so much and enjoy the rest of reInvent.